Welcome back to Strength Cultures Podcast, number one in the hearts, number one in the charts. Just quickly checking in before the start of this podcast to let you know that we are now offering the first month on the training app is free, and that is exclusive to our podcast listeners. Inside our training app, we have a bunch of programs and programming streams, things like power building for those looking to get jacked, get strong, but also lose some weight and actually train with some high volume in the gym. We also have power lifting, high and moderate frequency, as well as a bunch of strength and conditioning or hybrid style programs. As well as all the programs, we also have a bunch of educational videos, things like anatomy, nutrition, lifestyle, recovery. All of these things are built into the app to make sure that you are equipped with the understanding and knowledge needed to continue to push your training past your initial limits. And I just want to let you know that the entire experience is completely free. Free programming, free education, and free access to us in the Discord for form check and any questions you have related to training. Use the code PODCAST through the first link down below. Otherwise, let's get into the show. Welcome back to Melbourne Strength Cultures Podcast, number one in the hearts, number one in the charts. We're here with a fan favorite, a culture favorite, a long-term friend. We feel like we haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Luke Tulloch. Welcome to the studio.
Mate, it's really cool to see this place.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Obviously, we sort of initially crossed paths more formally when you ran a seminar at the first location with Jordan Shallow.
Yeah.
Systems and Synergy.
That's right. Jordan's brain, like organizing it with Kyle Trainer. And Jordan's like, we need a name for this. Let's come up with a name. So he's like floated all of these different options, and that was what we chose. Yeah. Just the brainchild of Jordan.
Yeah, it was a good day. And you brought up in the presentation, it's a running joke here on the podcast about creatine.
Yeah.
And we feel like you were ahead of the curve with the idea that creatine had neural benefits or nootropic benefits. And then also Dr. Huberman, old mate Hubie, was on Joe Rogan yesterday, and he was supporting that evidence. He was saying there's all of this new information coming out related to creatine and its neural quality. What does it do? The sheath.
Yeah, the sheath.
The sheath.
Well,
there's sheaths in that.
Yeah,
sheaths in that, you know. Well, I'm not a big Hubie fan, eh?
Oh, no?
Nah, bro.
Neither's Bruce. This is
No. Mate. Do you know, when I thought there was something fishy going on, I'll talk about the creatine in a sec, but I thought there was something fishy going on, but then he did Mark Bell's thing, and I watched them when they did the YouTube thing.
Yep.
And they go in, and Mark Bell's trying to show him how to bench press, and he goes, I've never bench press. And I went, nah, mate.
Suspect.
Come on, mate. 7 years or something he's been training. He's never bench pressed, he says, not once.
Yeah.
Don't trust that. So...
So that's it. That's why you don't like you.
Ever since then, I never trusted him. No.
That's the quality. All right.
It's that, and then it's, I don't know.
Proper lab
Bench
coat,
is
bro.
the
Can't trust him.
Bro.
Can't trust him, bro.
Bench is the
Serious.
first exercise you do in the gym.
100%.
For 99% of people, I feel like.
I mean, I don't bench that much, but I've
Wait, is that
done
actually
bench
the
press.
reason you don't trust him?
It's one of the big reasons, mate. I'm serious. No, I'm serious. Why would you lie about that?
All right.
He's
fair
definitely bench pressed.
Probably because I feel, I don't know.
I thought it might have been like the butter in the coffee or like the sedentary behavior.
Look, I mean, I don't like that either, but
Yeah.
the bench press thing really got to me.
Yeah, fair. Fair enough.
I don't trust people for less.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. That's it.
All right. Well, then Huberman wasn't supporting creatine, but what does creatine actually do?
Wait, wasn't he?
No, he was.
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh, he's probably got that right.
He was. You got to get about 3 hours into the podcast, but he has a good chunk about the nootropic benefits of creatine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I presented on with systems and synergy was to do with the energetics of like a neuron, right? So it's kind of like a really long, skinny cell, and some of the sort of machinery that keeps the cell running is at one end, and then right on the other end is where all the neurotransmitters are kind of stored and then released and this kind of thing. And so if you think about the energetics of like the cell, it's a bit difficult to generate energy in the mitochondria, transport it along the cell, get it to that end where all of the neurotransmission and stuff's happening. So if you have your creatine phosphate, that acts as that sort of short-term energy source that can kind of very quickly fund that movement and the transport of those neurotransmitters up the one end. So that was kind of like the mechanistic thinking that I had at the time of like, hey, this might be how or why it's working. And then there was like some evidence just looking at things like concussion and mood and this kind of stuff that was like pretty preliminary that was seemed to be supporting it. So, that was where my ideas about the neural benefits came from. I'm not sure what Huberman said. There's probably a lot more evidence since when I presented that, because at the time it was like a little bit.
I remember you saying that it was a little bit like the theoretical sort of application makes sense, and there seems to be a mechanistic application.
Yeah,
and you sort of bridged it with that.
Yeah, for sure. And like honestly, I think that it could be just that you need like a lot of creatine for it to actually make any
Don't worry, Charles.
significant difference.
Charles has bloody taken it all over here.
You got to smoke it, mate.
No, we took it. Yeah, I took it once.
Get that IV drip, brother.
I need
50,
to.
you get 50 Gs a day.
Yeah. What are the doses? Because the thing always says 3 to 5 grams for normal. But are we talking higher dosages?
Probably. I'd be speculating, but I mean, it's probably like if we went 3 to 5 grams, maybe it's like 30 to 50 grams or something. You know what I mean? Like
a day.
lot. Yeah.
So we got to go. Yeah.
So you got to up the dose, bro.
You got to literally like
That
beat
day
it.
creatine.
Inject it.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Are you still? Because I know back then you were consuming a lot of research and all of that.
Yeah.
Are you still one to like read a lot? Are you, or have you more solidified your ideas a little bit?
Probably less than I used to. Like I used to do like minimum 1 hour, but usually 2.5 hours a day of like actual study, which is reading research or textbooks.
Yep.
Like I really got into medical textbooks and stuff because I think that's underrated, honestly. But yeah, I called my jets on that a little bit because there's obviously the sciencey side of stuff, and then there's the application, and like the focus is more on the application and communicating that stuff now, because like in the past, okay, I could say all of this stuff and it sounds really smart. This is like Huberman effect, man. Sounds smart. You're like, fuck, yeah, I mean, he's a neuroscientist. Sounds correct. I don't know.
He doesn't bench press.
But he doesn't bench press, man. You can't trust him. Nah, it's just like sometimes you just don't really, it's difficult to communicate it to people who don't have a background, or even people who do have a background. Like, so I think that's been more of my focus, is improving the communication and application of stuff, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, he sounds smart, but I don't really know what he said,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the industry as a whole has sort of gone in that way, or at least our little echo chamber of it. Yeah.
Helped me a lot because I was really stuck in that research thing. I was if it's not backed by research, or if I didn't look into the research or have a paper to support what I was saying, is it valid? And Angus Bradley was someone who really got through to me on that, and he was like, fuck that. Just say your ideas.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've felt this like shackle come off me where I'm like, I'll just say something. I don't care. Like, this is what we've been talking about. We think this could work, or this might be good for training, and it's kind of liberating. But still having the idea of, research is there to help facilitate ideas as well, but not just taking it as the gold standard.
Well, I mean, look, man, like an experienced coach, like there's a lot of value in that as well. I think some people, like, research is important, but you don't realize how hard it is to make good studies and how young the field is. So unless there are people who are putting ideas out there, like, you need that, because that's how we're going to push the industry forward. And like our concepts and things that do pop up in the research are coming directly from questions that powerlifters and bodybuilders and stuff are asking and trying to explore. That's where it's coming from, So to me, that is really valuable. And you need a basis in research and physiology, but like you can't just rely on that exclusively, because the quality of the research is often just not even that good, honestly. So like, you take a bit from this and a bit from that, and it works.
Hubie loves an extrapolated mouse study as well.
He?
Yeah, loves a mice study. I'm off him too.
Honestly, it was the bench press thing, but I was
with the wind.
We'll see how he feels tomorrow. Maybe he wins you back. I don't know.
I got off him when he made me scared of drinking alcohol.
Oh, what'd he say?
Man, I listened to his podcast, and the whole thing was like, alcohol is killing your brain. And I was like, all right, you know what? Might be doing some of that stuff, but I like doing it. Yeah. So I want to do it guilt-free. And I'm not binge drinking or anything, but like...
Don't justify yourself to Hubie.
No, but I'm not binge drinking. I don't binge drink on the weekend, but I might have a couple drinks.
Couple of scotches?
A few
couple
beers.
of 21-year-old age scotches?
We went to dinner Saturday night. I like to have we had a couple beers from the tap. Like, I don't want to feel guilty about that.
Yeah. 100%. No,
just offset it with creatine, bro.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So it soaks up the alcohol, man.
Instead of putting salt on your chips, put creatine. Just sprinkle creatine all over your chips.
And the other thing, and now I'm thinking about, I don't trust him either, because he said he doesn't like alcohol.
He doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it. He doesn't like the taste.
The beer test.
I copped it for hating on Hubie 4 weeks ago. Now I get Luke Tulloch on it. Oh,
No, there's definitely something to just like the would you get a beer with someone test. Like, would you go and just get a beer with that person?
Nah.
And then
not with him.
not with you, you wouldn't?
Nah, fuck him.
Nah. Fair enough.
So Lane Norton's won me back over. Because he put out a thing on alcohol saying
Wouldn't
all
have
these,
a beer with him,
all
though.
the, yeah, but he put out all these things, and at the end he said, "I like to enjoy a few drinks on the weekend."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm back on you a little bit," because I thought he would be more like Hubie,
yeah.
but he's not.
He seems angry as.
Lane Norton is.
I don't have
angry.
beer with the angry people.
No, I'm not saying I would have a beer with him. I said it slightly pushed me back.
Do you reckon brown liquor would make Lane Norton punchy?
Nah.
Nah?
Who? Brown liquor.
Brown liquor.
Yeah.
You know that brown liquor makes some people. I
reckon
don't know. Have you ever met people like that?
We got a
Yeah,
friend like
punchy
Yeah,
people.
Yeah, punchy people.
Yeah,
They have a few scotches or something, bourbons, and they just it's like, calm down, bro. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know if it's a
definitely
specific
make
liquor. I think it's just any liquor would make them punchy. But I said, no, brown liquor makes them
Brown
punchy.
liquor.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know, brown liquor only gets the color brown because of the stuff that it's in the cask already. So, because when they brew whiskey and stuff, they brew it in casks that have been used for wine or whatever. And that, so if you brewed whiskey or brown liquor in like a ceramic cask, it would come out clear like vodka.
So you're telling me it's the wood that makes people
I
punchy?
just think it's alcohol that makes them punchy.
It's just alcohol that
not
makes
the
them
brown.
punchy.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
They're the type of people where it's like, oh yeah, no, I get punchy when I'm on rum. It's a bit of permission. It's like I'm drinking rums tonight, so like now I can punch on because it's the rum. You know what I mean?
I warned you guys. I warned you.
I told you. It's not my fault. I told you.
Buy the Bundy.
The demons are always there. And when they're drinking beer, wine, white liquor, they're suppressing them. And the brown liquor, they're like, oh, free
Let's
pass.
go.
Time
Yeah.
to go. Time to hit someone.
No, that's an easy way out of accountability. Anyway, it's all your fault.
Brown liquor.
You let
Shouldn't
me
have led
drink
me.
it.
It's the brown liquor.
Dish the blame.
Always.
Dish the blame. So yeah, obviously you're doing a presentation this week, and we haven't seen you present since Systems and Synergy. Obviously COVID came along, but you've also moved away. But and we'll get into that as well. But what are the topics that you've got sort of, or you're covering, or some of the new ideas that you've sort of picked up over the past few years?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff, man. I think a lot of it is around like just flexibility in training and how we apply a lot of the new research that's come out on training, you know. So just off the top of my head, I got some stuff on, longer muscle lengths versus shorter muscle lengths for hypertrophy. There's stuff on...
That seems to be a bit of a contentious point at the moment.
It is a bit at the moment, but it's interesting because there's more research coming out all the time. So
is it still is the theory still that lengthened positions are probably more favourable?
Yeah, but there's nuance to it as well because you got to think about, like, I hate to bring it up, but like resistance profiles and stuff, you know, is it to do with how much range we go through? Is it to do with like where the exercise is harder?
Yeah.
So there's nuance there. And then, you know, there's other stuff as well, like mixing rep ranges and how you, like, are you going to make every single exercise like lengthened position now, or like how much do you need to do, this kind of stuff. So there's heaps of stuff in there. And I guess the general theme of the whole presentation is just, you know, we've got all of this information here. How do you put it all together? And a lot of it is around the power of just kind of adapting it to the individual. How do we individualize stuff? How do we create flexible plans? This kind of thing. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can experiment with in there that I've been looking into lately. So that's kind of the general theme of it. There's a really big chunk on like psychology as well, mental training, how mental fatigue can affect the amount of volume you do and how you recover, how it can affect eating behavior, this kind of stuff, which I think's like not really talked about that much in fitness. We always talk about training volume and this and that, but it's like, okay, but you know, there's other factors too, you know. So
when you say mental fatigue, is that fatigue related to training, or is that external, like life fatigue?
Yeah,
that's
like acute
layered on?
mental fatigue. So let's say in the research, they normally do some kind of cognitive task. So for example, there's one task that they do where they have the word of a color. So it might be blue, green, red, but then the actual word is colored different. So you'll read blue, but it's colored red, and you've got to like say the color and not the word.
Yeah.
And you do that for like 20 minutes. So you get really, it's mentally really tough as you go along. And then they'll put you in a training session. And doing that, you'll see like a reduction of training volume by like 16%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like really significant. So the sort of carryover from that is like, okay, so maybe if you've got a mentally demanding job or you're a student or something, the time of day you train matters, or, you know, if you've had a hard day of work, mentally engaging, maybe we need to use the old, you know, daily undulating periodization or something and just like swap around training days, that kind of thing. So yeah, that stuff's really interesting to me, and it's like carrying over into how do we create flexible templates? How do we actually, you know, individualize training for someone on the ground, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah. I like it because we do it naturally anyway. I think, like, I know we all do it. We've had a really hard day or something at work. Man, I've got this big session. You know what? I've got time tomorrow. I'm going to flip that tomorrow. I'm going to do the easy session today. And we kind of do that naturally. But something I actually probably don't educate my clients on enough, because we've gone from such a rigid... Everything we've learned has been so rigid. Like, I know I came from the RTS model with powerlifting. That was very rigid. We're looking at data on how they're performing, and even all the volume, everything's got to be very specific and rigid.
Stress index.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
Man, it's hard, hey, because I think then you're dealing with personalities. Like, I get a lot of personalities who come to me who are like, yeah, I'm into data and I want the structure.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, cool, but you know, you might actually get better results if you have less structure. In fact, that's what the research seems to say. So where do you land with those people? Like, how much do you play to their sort of desires and their personality, and how much leeway do you give them because it's actually going to give them better results or whatever? Like, it's pretty interesting to me. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on in the seminar.
Crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like interesting topics. I want to come back to like this idea of like fixing and more fluid variables, because ultimately, like, when you view RPE as I think it's the most fluid variable. It sort of takes into if you're using it productively and constructively, takes into consideration how you're feeling and sort of previous efforts and last week's work and like it, and it's sort of just going with the flow. Would you see that other variables in the program would be as fluid as that? Like, would you have volume? So like hard sets, is that also something that where you're like, we're going to aim for anywhere between 3 and 5 decent sets here and see how we go?
100%, you can do that. I think this is why, in my opinion, RPE or reps in reserve is like mandatory to teach somebody.
Yep.
Because there's so many ways you can use it, and I'm going to go through them in the seminar too. But one method that I use is the RPE stop method. Essentially, you prescribe like an RPE that you're not allowed to exceed. So, okay, you're going to bench press with 100 kilos, Huberman bench press with 100 kilos, and if you just keep doing sets until a set goes above RPE 8.5. As soon as it does that, you cut it.
So you just keep doing sets.
Yeah.
So you might get 4 sets, you might get 6 sets.
You might get 2. You might
on a tough week, you might only get 2 or 3.
100%.
Yeah.
And so that way you can use RPE to modulate how many sets you do and how much volume you're doing over time. So like, I don't know, it's like there's one point in favor of I like to have control over the exercise selection and the load you're using and the amount of volume, because then we have a data set to work with. Okay, do we go up or down from here? But on the other hand, I wonder how much it actually matters. And I just kind of think like if you're training to your capacity regularly, you're going to make great gains. So why do I need to have a handle on, well, it needs to be exactly 16 sets this week? Why can't it be 14 this week and 18 next week?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think if it's sufficiently hard, because capacity for someone's undulating.
100%.
Like, that's it. And you talk about that. It's like, I don't know, someone's cup is, the capacity for that's finite. And you're not just taking into what they're dealing with in the gym.
No, totally. And I think it's, you have to get out of a mindset of like what's like ideal or perfect and get into a mindset of what's good enough, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
I think a big part of that, like the undulating variables, are setting up more effort a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's like if that's it, I know personally, if I came into a session and like I've got fucking 4 sets of this fixed, probably going to sandbag all 4 sets as opposed to knowing if I've got 2 sets to send it.
Yep.
And just having that flexibility, I think, just sets up more intent for those sessions and better quality training over time.
Mate, you're 100% right, because when I first recognized this was when I was working in the gym and I would program, 8 to 10 reps on exercises. And without fail, everyone does 10 reps. Always. They never hit the 8, the bottom end of the rep range. So I was like, fuck, well, how are you going to program to make sure that sometimes they get 8? And then I went down the whole relative intensity thing and all of this. So, I mean, you're right. Like, it just makes so much more sense.
I've been loving an open rep range of 5 to 10.
Mate, yeah, love it.
Love a 5 to
Love
10.
it, yeah.
Because some days I want to hit the 10, get that pump. And some days I can't be fucked doing 10 reps. So it's like,
Yeah.
all I know is
load.
I just want to do more load. As long as I'm like getting really close to failure, I'm sweet. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I
That's
just come
it.
back to that every time, and even with clients, I'm just like that's the most important thing. Like get them in the door. I'm like, do you understand this? Like how far you are from failure. That's before anything else.
Yeah.
Because before they start, I want more volume. I want more volume, and I'm like, all right, let's AMRAP. Let's make sure your intensity gauge is right. Their intensity gauge is way off. I'm like, well, that volume is irrelevant to you right now. We need to get 100%. You better at this. And I've just come back to that's every time I look at everything, I just go back. It's just if I can get that right, everything else should start to take care of itself.
Effort.
I agree.
It's effort.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of people lack.
Would you say then that maybe a better way to frame like a program design might be more so that you're just trying to create a well-structured exposure, and it's not so much that you're trying to get 6 sets or 8 RPE or this or whatever, or progression from last week. It's just that across the week, we've got to hit, let's just say bench press, because we're using that as the, let's write Huberman a bench press program. We've got to hit bench press twice a week, and structuring day 1 as slightly more volume, but whatever RPE, and then day 2 slightly less volume. Like that might just be a better framework to work within, rather than being like, we're going to hit 8 sets on Monday and 6 sets on something like that. Is that
yeah. Well, for sure. Because like, just think about it for a second. How do you know which one is better? You can't possibly know which one is better because you don't have a randomized controlled trial to compare the 2 conditions in the exact same person.
Yeah.
If I gave Huberman 6 sets a week, or I gave him 8 sets a week,
Huberman.
you know, like I can't compare those 2. It's impossible. So all we're trying to do is like, can we get into a reasonable ballpark with this and see, is the progress reasonable for what he's doing? Is he enjoying it? I'm sure he would enjoy some bench press if he did it. Who doesn't?
Absolutely.
You know, and if those boxes are ticked, sweet. You know, like no problem. It doesn't really matter if it's 6 sets or 7 sets or 8 sets or 8 reps or 12 reps or whatever. You can certainly theorize it, and like you want to think about that stuff. Like, is it, you know, potentially better if I do this or this for this particular client, taking into account their training history and their personal preferences. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to find something that is going to push them forward, right? And so it is just about like, let's get a reasonable enough stimulus that they can make reasonable enough progress, and, you know, ride that out. And then if the progress starts slowing down, then you can kind of figure out a change that you can make.
Just
from
make small changes over time.
Yeah, totally. So it just drives me a little bit insane when people get a little bit like, well, this would be better if you do this. And it's like, well, you can't really test that for an individual. It's impossible. So you just got to kind of make your best educated guess. And then if they make progress, then sweet, you've done something right.
Absolutely. If you enjoy the way in which we view and talk about training, I'm going to assume that you'd probably also enjoy the programming and the strategies we use for our clients and athletes here at Strength Culture. You can get free access to all of our programs by using the code podcast through the first link down below, as well as a whole bunch of educational videos where we help you understand and better apply the things that we talk about in the podcast. Again, first link down below, podcast as the code, and your first month is completely free. A further question to that then, because one thing I love about your, there's a lot of things, especially over the progression of your social media, just sort of utility. But you always come back to these things that you've changed your mind on, or at least updated your view on. And also your email list as well, I think, is probably the only email list that I'm regularly not just deleting. I'm just like, because you get me with the little tagline, but then I'm in reading it. I'm like, this is actually like, it's just well structured and it's just, I don't know, logical. So
cool.
Firstly, thank you for making the content you do. But you always come back to these things where you've like updated your view or change your mind on. And recently you did the one about frequency, training frequency. And forever it's always been like 2 to 3 exposures per week. But now you're sort of saying like, well, it could only also just be 1 exposure per week, maybe 2. Like, do you want to speak on, is that in this same conversation?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's, originally I sort of based my recommendations on a meta-analysis that was done. And I mean, this is a bit of a side note on the research that we were talking about before. It was a meta-analysis that had like 6 studies in it. So we're getting more and more meta-analyses now. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically when they take data from a bunch of published studies and they just stick it all together so that you get a bigger data set to work with. But 6 studies is not very much. So you're getting all these meta-analyses in health and fitness now, and it's like, oh, it's a meta-analysis, it must be better, but usually that's not including that much data anyway. But there was this meta-analysis in like 2017 or something that sort of indicated that training even if you did the same volume, if you split it up over 2 sessions a week instead of 1 session a week, you'd get slightly better muscle growth. It was like a 4% advantage or something like that. So, okay, that's kind of my default stance now. Okay, if we can, let's put it into 2 sessions. Then there was a more recent meta-analysis done where they basically just ran the same thing, but they had more data to work with, and they didn't find a difference between 1 time a week or more than once a week. So, you know, what do we do with that? Well, we go in and we just say, listen, it depends on the individual. Like, does this person have to do a shitload of volume? Okay, probably better to split it up over, 2 or 3 times a week. Otherwise, if they just prefer doing a bro split, it's probably not going to be any different. And if they prefer the bro split and it feels good to them, shit, man, they're probably going to get better results.
Bro split's coming back.
So, just go for it. Like, it doesn't make that much. And even if, honestly, it might be a case of like, I love training so much on a bro split. I don't want to give up Monday chest day. I don't want to give up my bench presses on Monday. And so...
And it comes back, it's like the buy-in stuff.
The buy-in and the effort is higher.
Yeah, the psychological sort of like investment in the
100%.
process is the undercurrent of actually what makes things productive.
100%. And so, you end up with more effort. And I mean, even if, like, let's say for whatever reason, I hate training a body part 3 times a week. I really like training it once a week. Maybe I'm happy to give up like a 3% advantage.
For more productive training.
Just to enjoy my training more,
You average it out. If you are someone like us that is going to train for a long period of time, like these little differences, are they going to add up over time? Probably not.
Man, I was doing a fucking 21-day microcycle and doing some movements every 21 days, and I was seeing progression on the movements. I can't measure hypertrophy, and maybe there was a degree of novelty with some of those movements, but there was still like a squat variation, a hinge variation would change every week.
Yep.
Shouts out Grant Fowler for this program. But some of the accessories, I was training like once every 21 days and still seeing progression, chasing intensity, pushing that hard. Volume-wise, it was low, but there's still stimulating change. Like that's what I think. It's objectively improving.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
We've even been looking... since we're obviously doing the try on Sunday, we've been doing a lot of concurrent training, and that's really broken me out of some of my biases as well, because looking at like some templates and programs, there's a lot of undulating. So like the top singles, or that they'll undulate. So it's heavy one week, next week's light, next week's heavy. And like, whereas I haven't been exposed to all of that coming from very powerlifting, it's like just constant RP8 or RP9, progress that or whatever. And that's really broken me out. But I've also realized that you don't need, like, to maintain strength and hypertrophy. People think that it disappears like that, but 2-3 weeks you can go without an exposure and you'll still have
Fuck all.
Yeah, dude.
You'll be weak and skinny. But you'll still have like your performance will still be there. Have you done much? Have you read into much on the maintenance of strength and hypertrophy?
100%. There's lots of really interesting research coming out now. Yeah. So
how little is it? For people?
It's tiny.
People are scared. Well, they don't train for a week because they're on holiday and they're like, I'm going to lose all my gains.
Yeah. Muscle memory's back too, isn't it?
It is, bro. Yeah.
Fucking these bros, they know what's going on.
Health and fitness is in a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
In terms of how long have they been doing research on? 20 years? 30 years?
I mean, it's not that long, mate.
Years,
And you would say research with a little bit more applicability and high quality, really short, like 20 years at most, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the minimums. I mean, there's a Greek researcher who's doing a lot of He's doing a lot of research on specifically powerlifting. What's the minimum amount of training you can do and still make gains in the powerlifts? And it's like, mate, 1 or 2 sets on a lift twice a week, you can still get stronger over a 12-week period.
Yep.
It's like literally really low volume. And then, there's like the study that always gets bandied around where they basically trained people, and then one group just did nothing for 6 months and the other group did 1/9 of their original training volume for 6 months, and the 1/9 group maintained their gains.
Yep.
The non-training group lost 30% of their muscle or something.
Yep.
So the volume is really low, that you need to maintain.
I saw the
1/9.
The 1/9 thing was I saw that in Jeff and the Bud video.
What's the Greek researcher's name?
Socrates.
They just call him Dr. Pack, I think.
Mr. Cleese.
Oh, I've seen his stuff. It's fucking solid.
Yeah, he's written a couple of articles on on for the Stronger by Science guys for maths.
Yeah. Oh, nice, has he? Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. He's a beast.
Yeah. Maybe if he's traveling Australia, we'll get him on.
Mate,
BPAC.
He's cool.
No, the Greek
BPAC.
researcher. Yeah,
BPAC.
yeah, absolutely. It is interesting though how the industry went through like a very objective sort of chapter, very objective. Everything was data, everything was like volume landmarks, RPE, like everything like rep ranges, all this stuff just became very objective. And then I think the transitions for myself especially came from when like the BPS model sort of broke out of like rehab.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, well, hang on, there's all this other factors around like what influences a human and their beliefs, their thoughts, their emotions, their sort of expectations, and all of these sort of things sort of impacting their view of training and what's productive and how we actually make progress. And I think that's when I started to be like, holy shit, there's this whole other world. And now it's interesting that I feel like everyone's sort of just starting to lean a little bit more into that direction as well, where it's like, well, things like the bro split, if you're training harder and you're getting more productive and you're more bought in, that's probably better for the outcomes anyway. And the 3 or 4% gain that, have you battled in that transition at all? Being like, well, I can actually, because it's almost like, it's not that we're losing our expertise at all. Like we still understand all this information, but it's like so much more of it has to be like this communication end of the client and like actually working with them.
Yep.
Where sometimes, maybe it's just a harder sell to be like, oh, what are we doing this for? Well, it's like, oh, you just kind of, just like... Yeah. Like, do you ever feel that you battle with that idea where you don't have like a top-down view of what you should be doing? It's a very bottoms-up sort of focus.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. I think I used to be very prescriptive, and you know what's tough is when you start to get a bit of a rep as a coach, and then people come to you because they think you got some secret sauce,
Got
right?
the answers.
Yeah. Or he knows a lot or whatever, and they pay you a premium as an online coach. Like I earn more as an online coach than I ever did working on the floor, right? And then, you have a bit like, you can choose whatever exercise you want for your biceps.
That's literally what I'm...
And they're a bit like, oh, really? Like there isn't one that's better? No, not really. No. It is a hard sell for sure, but I think, like for me, I still struggle a little bit because it's really important to me as a primary sort of thread that I think about is promoting self-efficacy for the client. And self-efficacy is essentially just your sort of self-belief in solving problems and overcoming obstacles. So I don't want to be a coach that is so prescriptive that a person feels like, well, unless I stay with him as a coach, I don't know what to do. I want it to be like, I'm getting something out of this from this coach. He's helping me a lot, but I also feel like I'm growing. And if I needed to step away at some point, I can do it, and I actually know more and I can do more by myself than before. And I just feel like before, when I was very prescriptive and like, this is the answer and this is what you got to do, it's kind of like they're stuck in this prison of paying you fucking $400 a month and, they can't ever leave. They don't know what to do. So I do struggle a bit with that. But conversely, it's also very intellectually stimulating because now you still need to know all of the theoretical stuff. I think people get their wires crossed with this sometimes. It's not just like do whatever you want. It is, you still need to know what you're doing. It's just when you apply it to a particular individual, you need to know what do I apply to this person? What's appropriate for them? How do I introduce it in a way that gets buy-in from them that they understand? So it's actually, you still need to know everything. You just need to have better communication skills and better applicability to the person.
I agree. Because like we're even in this conversation now, we've got nearly 10 years, 8 years. How long have you been in the industry for?
16
years doing 2 hours of study a day. Like there's a lot of knowledge that has been, whereas I think if you brought someone in here, a lifter first year, and said, bicep exercise doesn't matter, do whatever you want, they wouldn't be able to wrap their head around why, whereas we know that certain specific stimulus that drives hypertrophy. And really, if you're doing a dumbbell bicep curl or preacher curl, Tension on muscle is tension on
What
muscle.
about one of them Jesus curls?
It's fixed, brother. Yeah, don't worry about it. Doesn't cut it. For coaching, you know what I mean? Like I'd love to. But don't worry. Just whatever.
Just do it, bro. Whatever.
This one, it works. That one works too.
First week of online coaching with Jamie Booz, you get one email, tagline, do whatever you want. Ella, it doesn't matter.
And then just finish it. PS, just go hard. Just like that's it. That's all you need.
Check in on Monday. Enjoy your weekend, bro.
I've still got a bit of I've still got this, and I have years ago, 5 years ago. One of my first clients, and Jamie will remember this story. He quit very abruptly, and one of the feedback I asked him for feedback, and the piece of feedback I got was he didn't like that I put role of choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now, 5 years later, all this information that we're talking about, I've still got this like trauma of like, I think a client is going to not see the value in our service. They're paying a premium, bicep of choice, tricep of choice. I hate it. I'm like, no, I've got to give them something.
No, you got to tighten it up a bit. And you got to say like, of choice.
Yeah, exactly. What I do, I give them a small pool of exercises, so they go, oh, okay, these are all the good ones, but they're still getting a bit of choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you give them like a.
Yeah, I might give him like
3 or 4.
I don't know, yeah, something like that. There's research on that as well, where they compared one group who had to do a certain exercise, and the other group got a choice of 3.
Yeah.
And the group who had the choice of 3 got stronger, gained more muscle.
What is reality?
So.
What is reality?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Nothing
It doesn't matter.
But that's also
Life
like
is an
something I'm
existential
something I'm presenting on is like placebo, and then how you can use placebo, because like as a coach you can kind of dress some stuff up and
Harness
then you get the buy-in, you get the belief, and then you actually get your client better results. But where's the moral line with that? You know what I mean? Like you can't just tell them that, I don't know,
You you can't. Yeah.
make up a mice study for it or
Sprinkle
something.
some testosterone on your cornflakes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting.
That's wild.
They've done that research too. I read that on Stronger by Science about the placebo like steroid. They performed and improved drastically, and they were on nothing.
Yeah, gained like 6 kilos in 10 weeks or something, and
wow.
giving them like saline injections. Yeah,
Just
it's
from
crazy.
thinking they were on steroids, like they're injecting them with a dud.
Yeah.
And,
Can you touch on a little bit more of the muscle memory?
Oh yeah,
Because that was something that for so long everyone was just on their high horse, blah blah blah, and I'm sure we probably fed into it a little bit, and then it started to shift back, and people were talking about satellite cells, and they sort of like hang around a bit longer or something, the proliferation sort of.
Yeah, so that's like one aspect of it. So I'll give you the rundown on the satellite cell. So it's basically like sort of like a stem cell, I guess, that sits outside the muscle, and then when we train, these cells join on to the muscle cell and donate their nucleus, which is important because the nucleus is kind of like a sender where a lot of the proteins and stuff in the cell are built. So I like to sort of visualize it like this. Imagine you got a city, right? And you got a hospital, and you got a police station, and you got a train station. For the city to grow bigger, you need more fire stations, more hospitals. Unless you get those, the city is constrained in how big it can get because the infrastructure is not there for it to grow. So it's the same thing with a muscle. The number of nuclei it has constrains how big it can grow, because if you only have one nucleus, it can only service a certain region. Yeah. So that's kind of one of the ideas, is that when you train, you get more nuclei in your muscle cell, and even if you detrain, those nuclei hang around. And so when you start training again, hey, we've already got all the infrastructure to expand this area. Away we go.
Bang.
So that's the sort of satellite cell theory of it. It's called myonuclear domain.
The bloody bros, man.
You're like that. If you do 8 hard weeks of training,
My body changes. Yeah, I'm definitely like anecdote. No, it does. Yeah. And it's not even 8 weeks. Sometimes it's like 2 hard weeks of training, and I'm already like, what the fuck?
I'm a bit the same, man. Because like right now, I've done 2 or 3 training sessions in 6 weeks or something. I don't know. But like every time I do a session or 2, I'm starting to feel it already, sort of thing. Yeah. It's weird.
I could be tested for like truly detraining an individual and then just
just
all or nothing, going hard for 6 weeks and then detraining them again. Like I'd be a perfect candidate for that.
I did that once because when I used to work at Lyft, we had the gymnastic bodies come through. And so we did this gymnastics course, right? And I was like, yeah, fuck, I'm going to do that. So spent 5 or 6 months just training gymnastics as like my only training. Lost like, I don't know, 7-8 kilos or something.
Kept those nuclei though.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm over it. So went back to bodybuilding. And in the meantime, like a few new trainers had joined the gym and I've just like blown up over the course of a month. And they're like, mate, are you jabbing or what? I was like, no, this is how big I used to be, bro.
Yeah.
My nuclear, haven't you ever fucking heard of it?
Exactly. The infrastructure's
Guess
there.
you guys don't even fucking bench press either.
yeah.
It's interesting.
That's wild. Absolutely crazy. So obviously, in this process, so you just brought up lift. I think you sort of left as it combusted.
Honestly, the
Just
timing
like
was
the
pretty good for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, mate. We had decided that my online business was going quite well, and my missus and I wanted to travel. So organised a seminar in Stockholm in Sweden, basically getting ready to go, and we were like a month away, and then Lyft abruptly closed. So it was a pretty shit situation, but the timing was actually okay for us because I'd already planned to leave anyway for a while. So yeah, we packed up and went overseas like 6 weeks later or
Straight
something.
away.
Yeah. So it was all right in the end, I suppose. But
And then you also, because Sweden was the country that with the COVID restrictions just
yeah, no real
no
restrictions.
real restrictions. You sort of like caught that wind as
Yeah,
well.
it was a bit of a long process because we were.
Are you in charge of all of this, mate?
Yeah. It's all gone all right, actually. Yeah.
We love
I had to
conspiracies
hold
here.
back. I was going to say something stupid. I told
We love conspiracies.
You got to be careful with that shit, eh? We went to Sweden and then we were hanging around there, and it was a bit like, oh, are we going to? I can't just stay on a tourist visa forever, but it's big pain in the ass to move there. So ended up moving to the Netherlands for a bit, and we did have COVID restrictions there. So gyms were closed, training with bands in my freaking courtyard, which sucked. Man, it was so bad. And then we went back to Sweden, and then it was suddenly like, yeah, sweet, you can do everything you want again. Mad. So we had a heaps good time when we went back.
Yeah, and you were saying just before you got here that you've sort of missed certain aspects of Australia because you've been there for a few years. You've been overseas for a few years.
Yeah, this is our first time back in a bit over 3 years.
Yeah.
So I said before, I kind of wished it was obvious which place we preferred, but it's like pros and cons for both of them, and it's a bit like, oh, what do we do now? So, yeah, there's some mad stuff about Sweden, but definitely missed just hanging around Aussies, I think. Like, it's definitely a little bit easier to interact with people and hang out and this kind of stuff. And there's obviously like no language barrier or anything here. So definitely miss that. But it's like in Sweden, there's a lot of pros too. Like the housing quality is better, the internet's better, the public transport's better. There's free university. I've got a kid now, and the childcare is like minimal. We got paid 8 months parental leave, so there's a lot to like. Yeah. But it's kind of like, but it's not quite home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you say university's free, like you could just go and study whatever you want. Or you have to like.
No, I can.
Not many ways to put that one.
Yeah.
No, like you can just literally just sign up to a course.
Yeah, right now I could enroll in a university and not pay anything.
Yeah, but it could be free, but there's still processes to get accepted and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you still have to be accepted, but.
Do you have to be a citizen?
No, you could be a permanent resident, pretty sure.
So are you studying anything?
No. I was kind of keen to, but mate, my plate's pretty full. Yeah. My plate is really full. Our daughter's like insane, so it takes a lot of time to do that and run an online business and try and learn a language and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's full on, man.
How is the Swedish coming along?
Yeah, it's all right. Like, I don't get that much opportunity to speak it because we work from home, hey. And then when you speak with a Swede and you kind of have to search for a word and then you just use the English word, they suddenly go, oh, sorry, and start speaking in English. And you go, hey, you don't have to apologize. We're in Sweden. Like, you can speak your own language here. It's fine.
Do you know how to say Charlie's a dog?
In Hund.
Yeah, ein Hund.
Yeah, nice.
What?
Yeah. You're a dog.
Hund?
Yeah.
You're a dog. Yeah.
Language is all right.
So when you're going back to Sydney, because obviously you were from Sydney, what are some of the things that you're going to go back and hit up? Where are you going?
Fucking pubs, mate.
Oh, yeah?
Miss pubs, just like an Aussie pub. Miss that a lot. You don't really get the same sort of thing in Sweden. So I miss that a fair bit. We'll go on an ice cream world tour as well. You know, hit up your Messinas, your there's a few over there.
Hectic Eats.
What are the other ones that you like over Messina?
So they've all got
They
their
have
advantages.
Bira people in Sydney. They got it here, and there's the long debate of who's better.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Well.
Piccolina's.
Piccolina,
That's another one.
Yeah. I've seen that too.
Oh.
In Sydney, there's Marpo, there's Messina, there's Cow and Moon, there's Ciccone and Sons, there's Gelato Franco in Marrickville, there's Riverino in Surrey Hills, there's everybody. This is like I think it was Mac's favorite, Mackenzie Baker's favorite. What is that place called? But everybody rates that place, but I don't really rate it. So they've all got their pros and cons. But I got about 5 or 6 ice cream shops to work through.
You've got them nailed down. You got the locations. You got the
tour,
mate. Yeah, it'll be a world tour of that and adjacent pubs. So my old Friday night ritual. So Newtown Hotel used to mosey on down there 4 p.m. ish Friday. Couple of skews. You got a kilo of chicken wings for $15.
Oh, mate.
And then you're a short
Sounds
walk
like
down
paradise.
to Messina. You get a liter of gelato after that. You smash that. Feel like absolute shit for about 24 hours. But mate, every Friday that was the ritual. So have to sort that out at some point.
Absolutely.
Skoosh, wings, machina.
Mate, you can't go wrong.
Every
Can't
Friday.
go wrong, mate.
What beer have you missed? What beer have you missed?
Oh, there's so much new stuff now, mate. There's so many.
What do you drink? What's
Everything. In Sweden, they got a lot of really good brewers, but they're like really. So they sort of push stouts and stuff a lot there. But we're in a phase now where the stouts and the imperial stouts and stuff are like 12 to 14%, mate. So
the heavies.
So you're basically drinking
Alcohol.
Yeah, you got 500 mils,
And you're pissed.
and it's the same strength as wine. So it's very difficult to
Why
drink.
do they
those.
do that?
Get litty.
Mate, it's just yeah. Isn't it obvious?
Yeah, but there's always like a couple of cans that are like 14%. It's
Yeah.
like what? Like
It's just because they
are they trying to hit a different market, or is it something in the
Yeah,
in the
well,
process of brewing it?
Easy.
yeah. It's like an arms race, mate. So it's like, when all the the IPAs and stuff started coming out, and then they started adding more hops and more hops and more hops and brewing them stronger, and now you got double IPAs and triple IPAs. It's the same thing with all the stouts and stuff. So they'll essentially just like add more ingredients and like brew it again. So now it's like double strength, or they'll age it in a barrel, and so the alcohol keeps building up.
And the colour.
And the colour.
I would look at it as like they just want to experiment because they get bored.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
like,
there's tons of
try this,
experimenting.
Try that, try this, and then
So-
something lands, and there's a few people bought that. Well, fucking
Yeah.
You lean into it a little
You
bit.
know what they're doing now? They're doing sours, like sour beers, but they're aging them in barrels as well. Very interesting. So like I had one the other day in Sweden where it was like sort of pina colada flavors. They brewed with a bunch of tropical fruits.
You should have seen his face light up. It just went,
Oh yeah,
No, I don't know how I feel about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like
it was good. And then
You love a fruity cocktail.
No, I like a fruity. I like a fruity cocktail. I don't like a fruity beer.
He only
No,
drinks Carlton
but
Draft.
then they age it in gin barrels, and it's like, mate, it's actually really good.
Yeah, I always just go like, nah, just give me the draft.
You got an immature palate.
So
I've
feel-
got an immature
yeah.
palate. That's my issue.
That's fair.
I feel like
I've got to start.
You like what you like. That's
you
right.
and I I'd go on a tasting excursion with you.
Yeah,
'Cause
good, man.
I go to a brewery and I get the tasting paddle.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like, I just
same,
want
yeah.
to try everything.
Yeah,
I've got.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
And,
adventurous.
Huh?
So adventurous.
I'm so adventurous.
That's such a mature palate.
so adventurous. I don't know. I like the sours and the fruity.
Yeah, I'll drink
Stuff and-
anything.
yeah.
Honestly, it's it's all interesting
I
to me.
don't think I like the dark Guinness stuff. What's it called?
Yeah,
Guinness is a bit misleading. It's not actually that heavy.
No, but I had that one at Todd's 30th. Todd told me to get it, and I was an idiot,
Yeah.
and I got it.
Yeah.
And it was dark. The dark. What are they called?
I think they're called dark
yeah.
ales or something.
yeah, it's stout.
Is it a stout? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just there's a bit of weird flavour in there.
They can be weird, but yeah, I mean it depends because some of them are like super dark. It's just like tastes like burnt toast, mate. I don't really
Yeah.
want to drink that. Like,
It's like a bit weird.
yeah.
Is there anything in the nutrition world that has started to like get you thinking a bit more about how you're approaching nutrition with clients, in the same way of these sort of like ideas around
Nailed
the
beers.
training side of things.
Yeah, psychology.
Yeah. It's very beer related, my research.
Is there anything that's evolving where it's like, oh, this is actually starting to...
Yeah, I think nutrient timing's getting more and more research in it now. So like, how does your circadian rhythm and stuff align with how you eat? So we always think about circadian rhythm with light exposure, which is like the strongest signal. But also when you exercise and when you eat can influence the sort of fine tuning of your body's sort of natural clock mechanisms. So, you know, there's lots of research around that, which is cool. But I also find that sometimes then it gets even more prescriptive, you know. So now you're not only telling someone, I don't know, what macros they have to eat or whatever, but you're also telling them when they have to eat them. And so it's starting to get a little bit more restrictive in that sense. So a lot of my nutrition coaching is just about navigating specific events or specific situations and different tools you can use to do that. It's not so much like, well, these are the macros you got to hit and this kind of stuff. I actually don't really like doing that. But from an academic point of view, like the nutrient timing is something that's like pretty interesting. So a lot of it is probably showing that there's a bit of a superior aspect to having sort of a front-loaded approach. So more energy earlier in your biological day.
What about intermittent fasting?
I know, Mo.
Is that on the way
You got to do it on the reverse.
It's a
now.
reverse fast.
It's a reverse.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
Nah.
No.
So, but that's the thing. So you might
benefit
tell that to someone, and then they're like, "Oh fuck!" But I'm not hungry in the morning. I like delaying
And then
my
I
first
open
meal.
up my feeding window. Or,
yeah. So now then there's panic, and it's like, but it doesn't make that much difference. So
Yeah.
That's another layer to my coaching services. Don't worry, and then just shut your mouth. Just fucking eat it.
you do what I tell you.
That's it.
So it just comes back. It just comes back to the individual again.
Yeah, for sure.
Eat
Funny that.
breakfast like a king and dinner like a peasant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it does have some application. Like if people are really struggling to, like with their appetite and stuff in the evening, it actually having more food earlier in the day on average seems to be a bit better to help control appetite and stuff. So when you look at studies and they go and, yeah, they ate the same amount or whatever, but, you know, the earlier eating group lost more weight, it's probably just misreporting, and the earlier group had better satiety, meaning that they ended up eating a bit less and then losing the weight that way. So it does give you a few little tools you can use, you know, but it is situational.
Yeah.
Protein and plants.
Protein and plants, 100%.
Yeah, bro.
It's funny because we like
MBs.
the Mackenzie Baker, when we had Mackenzie Baker on the podcast, it just like we were sort of already dabbling down that road of like non-tracking methods and how to get it across the clients. But then listening to him just like flipped me completely to the didn't flip me completely. Still, I still use tracking with certain clients, and it's a tool at the right time. But yeah, just a few little basic principles to give people can just change their whole nutrition experience, and it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Like
It's a big mindset shift,
Yeah.
hey, which is cool.
yeah,
Sometimes it's even like you don't really do too much different in practice, but just the mindset of like,
I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, I always felt came from a very strict tracking background, tracked for years, and it almost felt like when I wasn't tracking, I'm not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself at a disadvantage. Like I'm training really hard, I'm not doing the right thing with my
Yeah.
nutrition. But realizing, and again, this is through years of sort of understanding that it doesn't actually matter that much. If there's certain basic markers that I'm hitting, then everything should fall into place. Yeah.
oh, for sure. On board with that.
And then just finish the day off with 5 beers anyway. So
yeah. It's all good, mate.
10% beers. Yeah.
Yeah, 10% beers.
Nice.
Leaned into your alter ego in the
Yeah,
last
boys,
20 minutes.
where are the fucking beers? 10 past 1.
I've got something else, and I don't know if but you'd be the person that I would go out. I would.
Luke's on holiday, so he's allowed to drink.
Yeah,
That's correct. I am allowed to drink.
Yeah. No, you'd be the person that I would reach out to for confirmation on this. Again, I'm going to bring his name up, but Hubie also, because I just listened to the podcast yesterday about he was talking he was talking about HPAC. He was talking about his. There's new research, whether or not you've read this, but I would like you to read it and then you tell me your idea. Yeah. Is about cooling the hands.
Oh, yeah.
Becoming a performance. I feel like you've read it.
Yeah, it's
Cooling the hands.
It's not very good, mate.
It's not
a thing.
It's not strong. Not strong research.
Did it
No,
It was on rats.
very weird. They cooled their tiny little hands. You know, the surface area is.
Wait, so what was it?
So
You cool your
apparently,
hands?
if you cool your hands to a certain degree, so the hands and the feet have that he spoke about them like radiators. They're very good at
What about
both-
these nuts?
Yeah, what about these nuts as well. But the hands can bring in heat and expel heat quite quickly, probably because of the blood vessels, I'm assuming, or water, maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. But he said that there's a lot of research, and he kept saying like tier 1 operators, and his tier 1 operators were like military people, and then also like certain sports, like NBA. I think it was the example.
tier
that he
2?
used. We're not, I don't even know if we're tier 2, but
Tier Alpha 1.
Alpha Omega.
Yeah.
We're somewhere. And then he was saying that if you cool the hands, and there's a certain level that you got to cool the hands, performance, especially in like higher rep expressions. So he was using like max push-ups as the example. Like you can significantly, and he said 75 if you maxed without cooling your hands, all the way to 150 if you could cool your hands.
Repetitions, or is that a
And then,
percentage?
no, total reps. And then
Oh,
the final
fucking
thing he
off him.
said, he's like, I can see into the future, and at gyms and places, there's going to be hand cooling stations.
Bro, it's like when you go bowling.
Not going to happen.
It's like when you go bowling and there's that little air thing that comes out, bro. Fucking Huberman on it.
And then just slamming push-ups.
Like, how cool are you
So
getting?
apparently, well, I don't know. He's got
expecting some
he's
sort of
got the
rigor mortis
answers.
here.
I'm trying to get the I'm trying to get it. But he's looking in the future. Him and Joe are looking in the future, and they're saying that if you cool the hands enough, that these things are going to be stations around the gym. I'm thinking like next to the water fountain. You just like splash your hands cool them
ice
down,
bucket.
and then go and slam your bench press afterwards. So
would've
Joe's
been-
asking him, "Can I put my hands in the ice tub and all of that?" Very like run of the mill Joe Rogan conversation. But what is the hand theory? The hand cooling theory?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact details of that research, but it was like, showing some very implausible improvement in performance.
Well, he said 100%.
Like, yeah, like, beyond taking like the biggest drug stack you could find, sort of improvement in performance. So I can't remember the exact details of it, but it's like, that's very implausible. And there's
So
a
you're
reason.
telling me the ice bath I've just bought for the hands?
Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
The miniature ice bath I've
I'm
just
sorry.
brought for the...
Convert it to a sauna, bring some beers in, you'll be fine. A spa, sorry. Yeah,
put the beers in the ice cooler.
put the
mate.
beers. Yeah, that will. I'm telling you.
I just don't think we're those people.
What? Hand coolers?
Hand coolers.
I don't think we're we're just not those people.
Fucking dorks.
That's a proper insult.
We're not hand
If
coolers.
if I want to call anyone a fucking nerd now, it's a fucking
Hand
hand
cooler.
Hand
cooler.
cooler.
No, but we're not. We're not. You're not like that.
No,
We're just
no.
Train hard, show up,
I mean,
do the
mate,
work,
there's a
have beer.
reason why no one's doing it. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, we
Like,
didn't know yet.
Hughie's doing it. I reckon.
that
Joe-
research came out several years ago, though.
10 years behind, you know?
So, yeah, well, I know.
all
But
right.
dead set, show me someone who's doing it legit and seeing that
We
in the
need to do
field.
it,
It's
don't
not
we?
happening.
We've
I
gotta
think
prove it.
if people are serious about improving performance, they're just going straight to the hard stuff.
Yeah, no, I was about to
seriously.
say,
Just jabbing.
for our untested listeners, throw your Anadrol out
Yeah,
and just
hand
cool your
cooler.
hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't worry.
Get a 12 tray ice cube, put in a bag. Save you a lot of money.
Take an esky to the gym.
Yeah.
All right, so that was bogus. There was one other thing that spiked in this, and it was about saunas.
Okay.
Heat shark proteins.
Yeah, no. Actually, that's another thing. What is brown fat?
There's this idea that you've got this fat that lives like between your shoulder blades that's like really metabolically active. And
Yeah.
so if you can like increase its amount or whatever, then it gives you this like huge boost to your metabolism, and then you burn heaps of energy and stuff. So that's kind of the target of a lot of
Yeah,
was
because that would
definitely
be
wrong.
my
Questionable
understanding
research.
of it. But is the
I thought
body
it was-
not
I thought it had more mitochondria. That's why it
yeah,
gave the
yeah. That's
powerhouse of the cell?
Yeah, but I thought that's
Exactly.
why it was it had browns under a microscope, whatever. It looked darker and
Yeah.
gave off a brown, but because it was more mitochondria dense from
Yeah.
cold exposure or whatever.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't.
Because in my eyes, the theory of that just sort of, why would the body start to produce something that's more energy?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing
That's
was,
from cold exposure, yeah? Because that's the idea.
Yeah, but also apparently there's like a 55-minute threshold to saunas, and apparently that then also starts to increase brown fat or something. There's something.
But so the cold reduces brown fat?
No, increases.
cold also
Both of them
increases both.
can at certain quantities.
So if I do
what
cold exposure, my mid back will get less shredded.
I figured it out. Sit in the
your hands.
sauna, hands in the esky, heat the body, cool the hands.
Yeah, but then the issue, you lose any density through mid back. You just
Not
get
interested.
Yeah, doing rows. You're doing rows with the esky. Your hands are in there on a fixed thing, and you're doing rows with an esky, with your hands in the
Oh my
esky.
God.
But that wasn't the question. That was one thing. Brown fat just came into my head there. But he was talking about why the Russians wear little like woolen hats in the sauna, and he was saying that the brain and something about it's protecting the brain. The small layer of wool, I guess, in the sauna is protecting the brain somehow, and you can last longer in the sauna.
Right.
That was the other thing, but I didn't know.
That's why I can't last in sauna.
Russians do a lot of weird stuff, man.
But they're doing it. They're all doing it for a reason. I reckon they know something.
That's Dan Sealand's got
BPS,
this-
bro, they believe it.
But have you ever seen those? I don't know a lot about like saunas and stuff, but have you seen those where it was like Konstantin Konstantinovs was like talking about, like he draws out blood at a certain phase of the moon and then he injects it back in during another phase?
No.
Mate,
Energy.
the Russians do some weird
sounds
shit.
like
Everything's
werewolf stuff.
everything's
Scary,
energy.
man.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Remember
he's
Jimmy?
doing something right, but
Jimmy's theory went the full moon. The
Oh, no,
idea
that's
with
what lunatic is.
the idea with the full moon is that the way that it pulls the I don't know, the gravity pulls the tides.
Yeah,
So everyone goes crazy when there's a full moon because it pulls the
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
moon's
water
still
molecules in
there.
your body.
The moon's there, whether
know.
it's got shadow on it or
This is
not.
very pseudoscience.
Yeah.
This is the only science I like to partake in.
All speculation.
So that's crazy. Did he actually say that? Because he's passed away now, didn't he?
Yeah, I
think
think
he
so.
did. Yeah.
I think it was him. There's a video of like some group of those.
I wouldn't mind
those
finding that and just see.
hectic Russian powerlifters, and they're all
Yeah.
like chatting about different stuff they do, and it's like they do this blood stuff and do lots of weird stuff. But I don't think any of that's really giving them the chutzpah that they got. You know,
Yeah, it's probably the testosterone and growth
Maybe.
hormone that they're
yeah,
jabbing on that.
might be.
If you jab it though on the third equinox
Yeah.
of the
No,
sundown,
but that's like how the conversation went.
yeah. If you jab your GH under Aquarius perfectly,
Yeah.
Anti-clockwise.
bam,
Yeah.
in the left butt cheek, 100% gains. Your hands are in the cooler, 200%
Oh man,
You can start to stack these things together.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's
all
compounds.
that's the
All
secret.
energy.
Yeah. I have no more questions related to any training stuff. Do you boys have any one-off?
I'll go one-off question.
Yeah.
I know you'll be all right with talking about this, but any research on microdosing, like psilocybin? or anything like that?
Oh, not that I've
It's
seen
coming-
recently.
know-
I don't
know
look at
you've
it
talked about
that much.
openly in your
Yeah.
in your
Listen,
seminar.
I'm not about microdosing. I'm about fucking
Macrodosing.
send it. Yeah. That's where I'm at, mate.
Mega dosing.
Yeah,
like that.
mega dose. As much as possible.
There's
Mega
4
dose, mega
macronutrients: high protein, fats, carbs, and mushrooms.
Here's psilocybin. Mega dosing. Anything on that or?
Look, mate, there's a lot of medical applications and stuff, obviously.
I think that's what more. Yeah,
So-
like for that kind of stuff. Is there
Yeah, like that's got a lot of promise. I don't know. I'm pretty
still fun?
mate, it's a lot of fun. But it's one of those things where I'm a bit down on it because of like, the government regulation. And unfortunately, you would think Sweden would be on top of that sort of stuff, but they're actually like super anti-drug,
Yeah.
which really sucks. Like they're even like zero tolerance on weed and stuff like that. Whereas like in Denmark, just across the bridge, they got like heroin clinics and stuff where you can go in and safely inject and things like that, which much more progressive drug policy, which I'm big in favor of.
Can you see the difference in the societies in any way?
Yeah, definitely from a perspective of like harm reduction, they do it much, much better in Denmark. And also Portugal is like leading the way in Europe.
Portugal's like
Yeah,
leading
mate,
the world
it's,
almost.
I find that topic really crazy because it's so polarizing across the world. Because even America, who seemed very hardline, have now almost gone the other way too.
Yeah,
it's like 40
dude.
states legalized marijuana.
I think they've learned how to monetize it.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with that, eh? Like, you monetize it, then
Monetize
like
alcohol.
the people get a better product. It's regulated, so you like reduce police occupation with that sort of shit, and you can respond to like domestic violence or mental health issues better. And then you get heaps of money where you can actually build some infrastructure. Like I don't see where the lose is in that situation. Everybody wins. So
it's happening here already.
Yeah.
Like the medicinal side of cannabis, like the clinics and
for sure.
Passed something recently for pill testing as well.
The pill testing experiments in like Canberra and stuff. Hey, like they've been doing trials on that.
Yeah.
So
they were meant to do it years ago, and actually, when I went to Rainbow Surfing, I went to a talk. There was a talk there. Talking about all that, the leak, and they had the pill testing approved for this one festival, and they just pulled it.
There would have been a lot of pills to test at Rainbow Surfing. They would have run out of bloody time, I reckon.
Jesus.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, mate.
I love to think about what's going to be like when we're 80. Like, it's going to be.
Oh,
Similar how like there was prohibition with alcohol
For sure,
in America in the 40s or 50s.
Yeah. Oh, look, I hope it. The attitudes obviously change in our generation, so hopefully it kind of filters through at some point.
Boomers, man.
Yeah, it's actually like you can get some like from the Netherlands. They obviously have the truffles, which kind of don't fall under the law there. So like you can get some psilocybin from these truffles, but you got to take so much of it, dude. We had this lecture from a guy. We went there, and this bloke, you go into like the smart shop or whatever, and you go, yeah, can I get some of these truffles or whatever? He goes, have you done it before? I'm like, yeah, plenty of times, fine. Can I just reiterate, I've done it a lot. It's fine. Mate, lectured for 30 minutes. Got to be careful if you start feeling this, blah, blah, blah. Start with a little bit, take a bit more, blah, blah, blah. Okay, finally we get through the fucking chat. We get home.
Safety brief.
Mate, we take the things. Fucking shit. This shit gear, man. It sucked. It really sucked. So you got to take a lot. Like
I had a different experience in Amsterdam.
Did you?
On the truffles, yeah.
Was it good?
It was really good.
Okay. Mine
Best
sucked.
visuals I've ever had.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I had the same experience. There was
I had that experience. Been twice. Had that experience the first time. Second time, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
We were looking at the trees.
Because you can sort of buy them for microdosing purposes now and actually have them shipped to Sweden. And because of the EU laws,
agreements.
you can get them in.
Yeah.
But it seems like you got to have to spend like €300 to get a trip, which is like, I don't know.
Not worth it.
Not
300
really worth
euros. Holy shit.
Yeah.
How many beers could you get for that?
Mate, a lot of beer. A lot of beer.
A lot of beers.
So many chicken wings too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Chicken wings are here. Have you actually are you checking out any of the pubs in Melbourne? Are you going to?
Not yet, man. If we've got recommendations, then I'm all ears.
Where are you sitting? It's Collingwood, you said?
Collingwood we're in.
Oh, you got heaps there.
There's a lot there. We can just walk down the road.
In the city,
and,
breweries, pubs.
It's insane, yeah.
You could
There's more, like, we're definitely realising, like, we have nearly 6 weeks in Australia, and we thought, that would be fine. And it's like, we need more time.
Yeah.
It's just so much to do.
You got a good spot there. Just get an Airbnb.
Yeah. We stayed there before in that, like, on Smith Street in Collingwood.
Yep.
It was insane. So, like, I just insisted on doing that again because it's mad. You just step out and world's your oyster. It's good.
It's a long way out this way, though.
Yeah, it is, but
it's worth it, though, isn't it?
It is worth it, man.
Good chat.
Oh, no, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's been good fun.
Yeah, we're going to get some beers.
Grab some booze.
We're done. Do you have anything that you're selling at the moment or where people could reach out and if they want to get involved in what you're doing? Obviously, the seminar's sold out. Bad luck.
Yeah,
but,
bad luck.
Anything? Just follow the email chain, I reckon.
Follow the emails. LukeTulloch.com. I don't know.
The only clickbait emails that get me. They suck me in every time. You just did one yesterday about failure.
Got him.
Failure sucked me in.
I've still got you.
Yeah.
In there.
Very good. Yep. I got on a big unsubscribe rant recently, so I'm glad I'm still sticking in the inbox for a few people.
Do you see when people unsubscribe?
Yeah.
How often? Does it hurt you still?
Nah, bro.
You're just like,
I got good open rates. I got really good open rates, so I'm happy.
What about click-through rates? Those links
click-through is really good, yeah.
Nice.
Click-through is really good.
You got it all sorted.
I'm very happy.
I've been trying to work on the email stuff. I've sent 2 recently.
Yep.
One of them did really well.
Oh, cool.
And that was I actually used your advice. Here's just a little bit more extra talk here, but your advice about dumbing things down to a 6th grade level.
Yeah, that's big. Oh, mate, that's huge.
Yeah, like actually, and I think we've sort of, we're moving towards that sort of stuff. Like obviously you can see how we talk on this podcast.
It's basically saying that
go for a run and lift weights. It's good for you.
But like dumbing things down to a grade 6 level so that people can actually like absorb the information and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah,
that was huge. That was like a turning point for me with my content and stuff.
Yeah. Writing, not trying to actually just like speak above everyone. Yeah,
definitely.
I like it. Dumb down.
Yep.
People.
Does the job.
You ever seen anyone unsubscribe from your list that you know and you're like, I'm going to cut that person off for life?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, nice.
Hubie.
My kind of guy.
Huberman.
Hubie
He
was
has
in
no
there.
idea if I exist, and
I
he
reckon
doesn't
that's
care.
where he got the creatine idea from. He got
I
it.
probably
He heard
nicked
through
it.
the grapevine. Maybe he was listening to our potty. We talk about creatine a lot. Take your creatine, kids.
H pack.
But we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for listening. 5 stars on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow Luke, especially his emails. Can't recommend them enough. Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
you.
boys.
And crush your seminar and those beers.
Will do.
Crash bees.
Crush bees.
I wish we could do it.
Thanks, bro.
You can use the code PODCAST in the first link down below to get access to all of our training programs, power building, specialization phases, powerlifting, strength and conditioning, and hybrid, as well as a whole heap of education related to nutrition, nutrition strategies, non-tracking nutrition strategies. You don't have to track calories. Also recovery, anatomy, biomechanics, as well as overall training philosophy. The code for your first free month on the training app is podcast, and you can find it through the first link down below. If you enjoy the way in which we view and talk about training, I'm going to assume that you'd probably also enjoy the programming and the strategies we use for our clients and athletes here at Strength Culture. You can get free access to all of our programs by using the code podcast through the first link down below, as well as a whole bunch of educational videos where we help you understand and better apply the things that we talk about in the podcast. Again, first link down below, podcast as the code, and your first month is completely free.